Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. We're going out of the matrix into prime reality. And let me start this by saying nothing is as it seems. And at the same time, the truth is actually staring us in the face. Sometimes it's just too close and we can't really see it for what it is. Today, we want to talk about what the hidden patterns in the chaos of the world actually are. Is there a key? Is there a message? Is there something in there that actually, um, w- would turn out to be the exact opposite of what it seems? And by the chaos in the world, I don't mean things that are subjective, things that only some people see or feel, but things that we can all find evidence for. By chaos, I usually start at the smallest level with the family unit and the individuals in the family unit. And we can now say that more than half, clearly more than half of the families, I would assume in most nations, if not all nations, are in disarray, are out of balance, out of order, are not getting along, and are out of balance. So that is the main signal for chaos in the world, is to look at, look at all the families out there. I'm not saying this with any blame, shame, or guilt. And I want to, this is sort of for this entire show, it's not about judgment or shame or guilt. This is about finding the signal in all of it. And hence, if we look at the world in a larger perspective, we see that communities and nations are struggling with much difficulty to stay afloat and to sort of stay functioning. We see the chaos, the disarray in the weather systems, the food systems, in all systems, as we've talked about so often. And if we look at it from only the human perspective level that we can see, then it's easy to find the culprits, right? It's easy to find, for example, European nations are currently struggling greatly with the fallout, with the effects of mass migration from a vastly different culture, vastly different cultures into Europe. To a certain degree, the same is happening in Canada, the same is happening in the United States, and the same is happening in other places. Now, we could go and point fingers at who is facilitating this, who is financing this, who is allowing this, who is opening borders, and who is creating very lax and nonsensical policies, and say, well, those are the culprits, right? They have literally facilitated this and they are to blame. And on one level, you would not be wrong. There is a systematic effort to make that happen. There is an entire, huge system in place to alter and change everything that we have known into a certain direction. However, if we stop there, we don't find the root causes. We just find sort of the symptoms, the bigger symptoms of it. So, what are the root causes? And I want to start by again going back into the smallest community, which is a family. We can observe certain things over and over and over again in a family. And there is an entire discipline out there that is called family systems, family constellation work. And it was founded in its form today. It was founded by a man named Bert Hellinger, a German psychotherapist who traveled to different places in the world and studied various indigenous um, rituals, ceremonies, and customs. and who observed similar or same patterns over and over and over again. And once we can observe something over and over and over again, and it remains the same, we can then say it is a pattern, it is a system. And if we can't find significant deviations from it, then we can call that the truth. That's sort of a way to look at it. And so Bert Hellinger, and he wasn't the only one, but he was instrumental in bringing this out to the world and showing this. Um, has found the truth about, for example, what the natural order of a family is, and has then expanded that area of research. Does that still hold true for larger communities, for nations, and international relations? And it did. It shows that there is a order that presents itself. It's not an order that humans create. It's an order that presents itself over and over again in these systems. When that order is maintained and acknowledged and honored, families are healthy. I'm not just talking physically, but spiritually, the relationships are strong and good. Communities are healthy and peaceful and good, and nations are healthy and peaceful and good. So, what happens is that the problem in and of itself is not that something out of the ordinary happens or that something bad happens. When we say something bad is there's an instance of violence, an instant of abuse, an instant of attack, an instant something that we deem as bad or non-wanted. Of course, that has an initial impact on the victim, for example. However, it only becomes a systemic problem when the when that which happened is not acknowledged, is hidden, is denied, is not talked about, and is tried to sort of be pushed away. When that happens, there's a disturbance in the system. There's a disturbance that affects now two entire families. I want to explain that in a real example. Let's say that um, a man from one family has has done something bad to another man from another family. Okay, it could be injustice, it could be fraud, it could be physical violence. So there was something that happened. When, for whatever reason, the fact that it happened is denied or not acknowledged, when there is no uh, sort of acceptance that it happened, and hence, usually with that acceptance that it happens, there's also usually a form of justice that needs to happen there. When none of that happens, two families and two family systems are now negatively affected because the perpetrator and the victim, they are connected through that deed, they are connected. So then the perpetrator's family moving forward, the descendants of the perpetrator, as well as the descendants of the victim, are now holding that energy unbeknownst to them and have inherited that energy of this unresolved and unacknowledged issue. And now, somewhere in that family system moving forward, that unresolved issue presents itself again, because everything that is not acknowledged, every truth that is denied, continues to present itself over and over again. And in stronger and stronger ways, it is disrupting the system more and more until the system finally acknowledges that something happened. There was something. When that acknowledgement finally happens, it could be in the next generation or generations after, and oftentimes that's how it works. Then the system begins to rebalance itself and harmony begins to return into the system. This is what we can observe in the work with families over and over and over again. Today, Christina's done thousands of family constellations, and She hasn't seen a family system yet that didn't have those problems. Okay. So maybe they're out there, but we don't know of them, which tells us that um, over long periods of times, the truth was not honored anymore. And the truth was hidden. And every time that the truth is hidden, it causes a ripple effect, a butterfly effect of tremendous problems until the truth is acknowledged again. So now let's look at the world today and the extraordinary amount of chaos within people, within systems, within nations, within international relationships, within all aspects of society. All the solutions that are presented today are short sighted and lack a true inner standing and an understanding of the truth. And so every well meaning or not so well meaning new government that is being formed cherry picks. It decides what is important and what it will tell the people, which truth it will share and which truths it will hide to protect itself. And so the system continues and continues. And what it does is, when the truth is not acknowledged long enough, it begins to metastasize. It begins to create cancers, various forms of cancers, right? Cancers is not just in the body, it can be systemic corruption, it can be systemic violence, it can be all kinds of things. It begins to build these unwanted systems until people acknowledge it. So right now, what presents itself as extraordinary chaos in the world is really the system, this invisible system that connects us all, if you will, screaming, look at the truth. Acknowledge me the truth. Acknowledge what happened. Acknowledge the truth about everything in your own life. Acknowledge the thing about the truths in society's life, in the nation's history. And if we did that and embraced that, the system would automatically fall back into harmony and balance. We wouldn't have to work actively at creating that balance. We would simply acknowledge what is. And once we acknowledge what is, it's like a child that is screaming and screaming and screaming. So often a small child that is always screaming, always disruptive, is like an alarm bell for the family, and it's screaming at the family, look at the truth. You're not looking at the truth. You're rejecting the truth. And once the family gets that hint and starts looking at the truth in their relationships, what has happened or what has happened in the past, and that is acknowledged and healed because of it, now the child doesn't have to scream any longer. And it's like people say, miraculously, this child is now peaceful. There was nothing wrong with the child itself. The child was simply the last link in a chain of people in that family that inherited something that wasn't that child's to begin with. And so we have inherited collectively in communities, in nations, we have collected these disrupted energies, and it is not our fault, nor is it our responsibility, what happened in the past, but it is our responsibility to now acknowledge it and say it stops with us. It stops here. For example, um, almost every nation has a very troubled past, and that is known. Nations have gone to war, and usually there's only sort of the big things are highlighted and known. um and so I'll take the example of America, which this is such an iffy subject. So I want to make clear, my stance is neither religious nor political nor ethnic. There is I don't think about it as this is better or this is worse, this is good, this is bad. Just looking at what is. If we look at the founding of America and the rediscovery by, the Western nations, I should put it that way, because it wasn't discovered. It was here. It was inhabited. There were systems, there were people, there were clans, there was a culture. And in the course of this rediscovery, this land was conquered, and the people that lived here were removed from it, and were the land was taken from them. We can now verify that virtually every treaty that ever existed was violated from the very beginning. Now, this usually leads to a political debate, or leads to a, oh, but they were warring nations too. That's not what this is about. In order for harmony and balance to be restored, one of the things that would need to happen is for both parties in this, the people that were here before and the people that are here now, for representatives of both parties to come together and acknowledge the truth about this situation, not the current accepted version of the truth, but the truth of what happened, and bow, literally bow to that truth. We acknowledge it, we see it, we accept it. We, the people that live here now, none of the people that live here now are responsible for that. They're not guilty of that. But we're the ones who are tasked with acknowledging that. And if we did, and if this would happen on an honest and truthful level, things would start to move in a healing and balancing direction. The reason why I can say this with certainty is because I have seen it over and over and over and over and over again. This is true, for example, for European nations. Okay, so we had a discussion yesterday with a dear friend of ours about the incredible changes that she has observed in the UK. She has traveled to the UK in the past many times, and the last time she was there, she said this is an entirely different nation now. The people that are there are very different. People from other cultures with different values have a very dominant presence in many places. And she said it was foreign to me. And we talked about this, and we talked about the fact that for the Great British Empire was an invading empire. It went all over the world, and it invaded and took over cultures and peoples and nations for centuries. And now it is experiencing a form of that itself. Now, we could go and again talk about politics, policies, and whatnot. But if we take the 40,000-foot view, then this is simply the system trying to rebalance itself. It is trying to uh, bring back the balance where there was imbalance created and where the truth wasn't acknowledged. And we find these things over and over again. And in constellation work, this rebalancing and healing can happen in a fairly short amount of time. And it is, you know, I was asked a number of times if I had the opportunity to speak to a world leader, and this is from a naive perspective, of course, that a world leader would even listen to something like that. But why not? Why not be a little bit naive about it? That's what I would talk about. If I was really sitting in front of a man or a woman who had honest intentions, if I was truly feeling that, this is what I would talk about, because this is something that actually can be done. And it is a truth that if it were to return into our culture, into our way of life, into our relationships, into our families, if we understood the power of this, we would not find the sort of the cheap way out and deceive and lie to each other, because we would know that the moment that we deceive and lie, we cut the bonds between our own families and our own loved ones unknowingly. So this is why when people say the truth needs to be acknowledged on all levels, and it is important that we look at it and acknowledge it, versus just thinking how, I'm paraphrasing here, but thinking the better feeling thought and just focusing on what we want. This is why I did the show on sort of the infiltration of these spiritual movements. Wherever the truth is denied, hidden, or not acknowledged, systems stay in imbalance. Families stay in disruption. Relationships do not work. And this is where we stand. So that's the signal that the chaos of the world is showing us. And we can only begin as individuals at the individual level, right? So sometimes you don't have the chance, for example, to uh, you know mend bridges with family members because they have passed on or something like that. But you can still do it on the soul level. You can still give and receive acceptance on the soul level. You can do, for example, a family constellation session, which is something that I would say everybody would benefit from if they at least did it once in their lives, and do that and experience the incredible power of how that benefits your system and to see what the order of things does. I'll give you another example everyone can relate to. We have discussed this many times at our retreats. When Christine and I are invited into another family's home for a meal, for example, inadvertently we observe the seating order at the table, right? So when and most of the times, unfortunately, it's not in order, which means that the proper and people are always fighting us on this, but the proper order as it presents itself over and over again is the father next to the father, the mother next to the mother, the oldest child, then the next child, and the next child. Then, if there are other family members, then they come after the youngest child, and so forth. And there's a when this order is kept around the table, meals are usually harmonious because the order is as it's supposed to be. And then people say, "But who made that order? This is just some rules somebody." No, this is not some rules somebody made up. This is what you observe over and over again. When it is when it presents itself in the right way, there's harmony. When it doesn't, there isn't. It's like we can find, when water is in its natural state, all the geometrical structures in the water are harmonious. When water is disrupted with pollution and poisons and negative frequencies, then it's a chaotic structure. It's the same thing in our family systems. It's just magnified. And so when we sit with families where the seating order is out of balance, there's usually it's loud, it's disruptive, there are fights, whatever. And we have where we were asked to help sometimes, we have said a simple thing to start with is change the seating order around your dinner table. And usually there's a little bit of resistance first because, you know, um, when, for example, the youngest child sits in the position of the oldest child, it takes on a certain power that it actually shouldn't have. And so then there's a little bit of a rebellion, but as parents, so be it. There's rebellion. You still say this is the way it's going to be. And once you maintain that order for a little bit, you can feel it. You can feel the harmony. You can feel the balance. You can give it a try and find out for yourself. And so the wise thing for us to do would be to learn about these systems again, which means to learn how to observe, to honor the truth, even when it doesn't suit our current mindset of it. So, in today's world, people love to adjust the truth to their comfort zone. That's not how the truth works. The truth just is. It's much better to adjust your comfort zone to the truth. And so when we are observant, when we remain in integrity of what we observe, we can easily see the truth. And if we really want to change something for the better, then we need to honor the truth by living by the truth, right? And that is creates a chain effect of healing automatically. So we are tempted, all of us are always tempted to look at the big problems in the world and start there. When we are the smallest units of these big systems, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, we are. You live in a certain proximity with other people, you're part of that system. Same goes for companies, organizations, charities, sports clubs, all has a system. And when we honor that, learn about that, and then live by that, we could literally initiate a wave of healing and a wave of harmony and a wave of balance that surpasses any other way of doing it. So far, um, peoples and nations and governments are always resorting to the same strategies by either, I don't know, building up military arsenals or sort of showing force or threads of violence and all that stuff. And while that can sometimes, when the bigger bear pressures the smaller bear, that can create a temporary moment of non-hostility, it does not come even close to creating true peace, balance, and harmony. And I'm saying it in this way because we can't really blame people for what they don't know. We can't really blame someone for not doing something because they don't know it, right? It's like once you know, you know. That's the moment where your responsibility to change it starts. You can't change something you don't know about. But once you know, then the responsibility does start. And so when this knowledge reaches you, go deeper into it, study it. Simple things that you can do, and I would encourage you to do it, is, for example, just look up YouTube videos of Bert Hellinger. Um, he has since passed on. I think he lived into his late 90s, I believe, or early 90s. I'm not sure, but he has dedicated his life to this work. There's a ton of videos out there, fantastic books that he has written. And the truth is very simple. He just shows it over and over and over again in various family constellation sessions and in explaining things. But the truth is always very simple. And once this sinks in and you know it, it's incredible because it won't be as though you have learned something new. It will be as though you have remembered something that was always in you because it is. And it, in my opinion, when we harmonize these systems, 90% of the other work that we're doing right now to maintain it, to keep it afloat, to make it work won't be necessary any longer. It will take the effort out of it, and it will automatically push us back into a more balanced way of being. Yeah, you wanted to say something? Oh, this is it, friends. Simple, short, sweet. Again, this is it's called family constellation because it was brought down to the smallest community there is, the most important one, the family. But it applies to the most powerful one, yes. And it applies to all systems. So let's say you are a business owner, you've built a company and you have, I don't know, 20, 30 employees, I don't know, or even five. There's an orderly system, and when that system is in place, your company thrives and functions beautifully because the truth is honored. When for some reason it's out of order, you have problems. This is the first place to look. So every organization follows the same natural order as families do and nations then do as well. So there is no group of people that is excluded from this. Wherever people come together and join for a particular reason, or where people come together because through family they were born into something, these systems always apply. They're there. Like I said, man did not create them, we just find them over and over again, and it is a truth in this realm. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us. And I would love to hear for those of you who've had experiences with constellation work, who know about this subject, or if you have questions and are interested in learning more, what exactly would you like to know more of? What are you interested in? And we're going to read those questions and do a future show on this. And I'll bring Christine, because this is something that she knows infinitely more about, and like I said, has done thousands of sessions and facilitated them, and can bring a lot of knowledge and wisdom to this. All right, my friends, much love, many blessings, and we'll be back with you again very, very soon. Your environment shapes everything: your thoughts, your health, your energy. But most people never question the invisible field they live in. We did, and that's when FLFE found us. It's not a product, it's a field of pure life force energy that lifts everything it touches. We now live in it 24/7, and we would love to invite you to experience it too. Start your free 15-day trial now. No pressure, no strings attached. Just the truth, resonance, and peace.